It's time to gather loved ones together for all the holidays' best spread. Lynn's has great prices on all your favorite Thanksgiving items, from delicious turkey with all the fixings to mashed potatoes and yummy pies. We have everything you need to create your perfect Thanksgiving dinner. Whether it's cooking the traditional meal, completely store-bought, or a combination of both, your best holiday meal starts here. Learn more and start shopping today at lynsgrocery.com. Lynn's, where delicious begins.
Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where two friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
And some burps, because someone is only drinking sparkling water all day.
Yeah.
It was me. Tell Cersei.
Tell Cersei it was bad.
It was me. Oops.
Oops. I'm Lucy.
I'm Amanda.
And today we have a very special gals pick.
Us.
It's Hog Girl Summer.
I love your sweatshirt.
Thank you. I'm wearing my Hag Girl sweatshirt.
So you're such a cute little hag.
Yeah. So someone was looking at it. I was wearing this, I think, for the last
everywhere
3 days
you go.
straight.
Yeah.
But someone was looking at it and I was like, yeah, that's me as a hog. See all my teats? And they were like, yeah, why are you only wearing a bikini top on your top 2 teats and the other 4 are just flying free?
Because there's no way to
ain't no
cover
laws
them all.
when you're a hog.
Yeah, no laws when you're a hog.
I love this design so much.
It's so good.
Okay, very special gals pick today. We are going to talk to you about forensic sculpting.
I'm so excited about my seg.
Oh my God. Yeah. I have always wanted to know more about forensic sculpting, and I thought of this idea for a topic because I was watching an episode of Forensic Files, which I will be telling you about today.
Thank God.
It's just so, I mean, you know that I love the intersection of like forensics and like whatever the fuck. And this is like art.
Oh, yeah. It's very much art. And it's incredible.
So we will get to it. First, I do have a special shout out.
Ooh.
This is a special shout out and happiest of birthdays to Kayla, who's one of the hosts of Black True Crime Podcast.
Happy birthday from Wine and Crime to you. We wish it was our birthday so we can party too. Hey!
Although yesterday, as we record this was my birthday.
Oh, it was. Happy belated.
Oh, thank you. So one of the reasons I want to shout out Kayla is just because their podcast, I think, is very important. True crime as a genre is like super often whitewashed. And this podcast highlights Black offenders and their victims, missing persons, unsolved cases. It's hosted by 2 Black sisters, Kayla and Kristen. And if you're interested, they release a new episode every Thursday, just like us. So check them out at blacktruecrime.com. And happy birthday, Kayla.
Oh my God. You could do like a podcast bang bang with Black True Crime Podcast and Wine and Crime. Get all your true crime on one sexy day.
Yeah, Thursday.
Obsessed. Thursday is the sexiest day. And I don't have any of the science to back that up, but it's like porn. You just know it when you see it.
It's a sexy day. It's almost Friday.
Day. Yep.
You're kind of like ramping up for the weekend.
There's anticipation on a Thursday that doesn't exist on other days.
And anticipation is key to sexiness.
And horniness.
Yeah.
Anyway, forensic sculpting.
Forensic sculpting. Art.
Art. Not porn.
Art. Before we get started, Amanda, do you have a wine crime pairing for us? I hope that you do, because that is part of
my job.
Your responsibility.
Yep, I do. I want to recommend this week the Sculptor Cab Sauv.
Stop. How do you find this shit?
This is from the Klaus Pegas
Big ass.
Klaus Pegas
Class Big ass
Winery, which is here in the U.S. It's in the Napa Valley and Calistoga region of California along that north coast. Such a beautiful region for wine in general. But this is like, when you think of Cab Sauv, babes, this is your spot. Like a Napa Cab is one of the most delicious, complex, robust, delectable reds that America has to offer, and I'm obsessed with it. This bottle in particular is an intense Cabernet Sauvignon shaped by harmonious and mouth-filling dark fruits and bolstered by scents of violets, graphite, black licorice, and wild sage.
Jesus.
Hi. I want this
dramatic.
as a perfume.
Yeah.
This is a full-bodied wine, so you're going to want like your grilled steaks, your cheesy lasagnas with a burger. I mean,
I am going to want that.
Yeah. You're gonna want it. And I also highly recommend that you check out their website, ClosPegas, CLOSPEGASE.com. They have a wine club, an awesome rewards program. They do tastings. They have events at their winery. It's just gorgeous. The guy who runs it was born and raised in Scotland, I want to say. And then he studied winemaking and like agriculture in New Zealand, and then came here and applied those practices in the US in Northern California to launch this beautiful winery and make this incredible wine. So definitely check them out. I want this is on my must visit list when we eventually get our act together and do like a wine coven trip to Napa. Which has been a long time dream that we will never give up on. You will have to wheel our corpses.
Paso Robles.
Paso Robles, yes. I also would do Willamette Valley. I want to do all the things. All the things. But this is, if you're looking for like a nice, full-bodied, classic cab, highly recommend the Sculptor Cab Sauv from Clos Pegas.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. It is a popper, so you're going to want a wine key that you can procure at wineandcrimepodcast.bigcartel.com. I do not have this bottle in my possession, but this was my fave out of all of my research, and I wanted to shout them out today while I hit my Benjamin and drink my water because it's mid-afternoon and I've got stuff to do tonight.
Yep.
What are you sipping on? You got your Penji?
No, I left it in the kitchen.
You never learn.
Learn.
Let's give you the opportunity to go procure what you need by taking a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors.
Oh, but wait.
Oh, what?
Okay, I do have my Stanley, and speaking of my Stanley and my Benjamin, did you see the TikTok I sent you the other day?
Yes.
Someone like retrofitted a Benjamin into the top of a Stanley.
Yeah, to get them to drink more water. I need to do this. This is the only way I'm going to be hydrated. So
I think it was like an ad for an actual company that actually builds those.
Okay, I'm going to look deeper into it. And also you sent it to me on Instagram, not on TikTok. But yes, I will dig. I'm going to dig. I responded, this is what I need to get me to drink water. And it's true. I do need it.
I send so many videos to other people and I never check my own DMs.
No.
Anyway, I'm fine. I'm going to go grab that. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
All right.
Support for today's episode comes from Honeylove, and I do love that I use the word support in the same sentence as Honeylove because these bras offer support and comfort, which is also two words that don't often come in the same sentence.
With bra.
So say goodbye to underwire without sacrificing lift. Honeylove's bras feature supportive bonding that eliminate the need for uncomfortable wires. We're wireless. It's 2025.
Go wireless.
Go wireless. Honeylove offers a wide range of sizes and caters to the diverse needs of all people with boobs. So if you got big ones, small ones, some as big as your head, one big one, one small one.
Tag yourself.
They've got something for everyone and a lot of different really cute styles too. So if you want something that's like supportive but a little bit sexy, they've got that. If you want something that like lifts and separates so you don't have like the uniboob thing. They've got something for that. And for a limited time only, you can get Honeylove on sale. Get 20% off your entire order with our exclusive link, honeylove.com/wine. Support our show and check them out at honeylove.com/wine.
Yeah, so that feeling when you get home from a long day and immediately want to rip your bra off of your body like a manic T-Rex. Yeah, with Honeylove, you'll never experience that again. These bras are so comfortable. I have on multiple occasions forgotten I was wearing it and fully went to sleep. I've certainly napped, but I have also slept overnight in these bras. I have two standout favorites. The best-selling crossover bra is so comfortable. It is sure to be your new go-to. This bra gives all the support of traditional bras without using any underwires and has that mesh detailing that adds that touch of sexy. And if you're tired of bras that cause like bulging in the back, all of Honeylove's bras are designed with back smoothing fabric to prevent bra bulge. And I also love, especially under just like a t-shirt, a more relaxed lounge bra that they knock out of the park with their V-bra. It offers the support of a traditional bra without the uncomfortable underwire. It's designed to lift and separate with molded cups. It's not the shelf bra. Like, I love the comfort of and feel of like a sports bra type thing, but then you just get that uniboob. This won't give you that, okay? And it doesn't stop there. Honeylove has more than just bras. They have incredibly comfortable shapewear, tanks, and leggings for everyday support.
Honeylove is not just supporting people with boobs, it's empowering them. Treat yourself to the best bras on the market and save 20% at honeylove.com/wine. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off, honeylove.com/wine, to find your perfect fit. After you purchase, they're going to ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Honeys, you deserve this, and so do your boobs. Free the pain and discomfort. Keep the support with Honeylove.
All right, we're back. And Lucy, I am very excited. I know how pumped you've been to do this. So, what is our background and maybe psych on forensic sculpting?
I suppose there's a little bit of psych in here.
Okay.
I'm going to go with that. Okay, so this is according to an article published by Carolyn Wilkinson. Facial reconstruction, not as in plastic surgery, but as in what we're talking about. Like forming a clay bust to look like a real person. Mm-hmm. Facial reconstruction is currently used in two principal contexts. We have forensic science and also archaeology. In the forensic context, it plays a vital role in the identification of the dead in cases where post-mortem deterioration has already happened. If they are decomposed beyond recognition, which is my favorite form of being decomposed.
My God. Okay.
I don't want to be recognized.
No. I understand.
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, that's not fun.
In archaeology, it is used to create 3D images of people from the past, from their skeletal remains, from mummified bodies, or for example, bodies preserved in bogs. Bog bods.
Frog bog bods. Oh, God.
According to Karen T. Taylor, an American forensic and portrait artist, the working definition of forensic art, oh my God, is, quote, any art that aids in the identification, apprehension, or conviction of criminal offenders, or that aids in the location of victims or identification of unknown deceased persons.
Okay.
We will be talking about the former today. I cannot with this man. So for a little bit of background context here, the human skull is comprised of 22 total bones. We have 14 facial and 8 cranial bones. This complex structure allows for minor variations during the development and growth periods, along with soft tissue differences, creating the enormous facial variation in the human population.
Yeah.
So even like, you know, when your skull itself is forming, like in the womb, that has a dramatic effect on what your face fucking looks like.
Oh, yeah.
According to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History,
Natch.
The brow ridge, the distance between the eye orbits, the shape of the nasal chamber, the the shape and projection of the nasal bones, the chin's form, and the overall profile of the facial bones influence facial features. So it's by using those bones that artists and forensic anthropologists can reconstruct facial appearance through the process of forensic reconstruction. The finished product approximates the actual appearance because the skull does not reflect the details of soft tissues such as eyes, hair, skin and skin color, facial hair, the shape of the lips, or how much fat tissue covers the bone. And this is where I always got totally lost and mystified as to how the fuck these people do this. So you've got your skull. I get that. All skulls to the untrained eye kind of look the same.
Yep.
If you're an anthropologist, you can look at a skull and be like, oh, this person might have been from the Mesolithic era.
Right.
I don't even know if that's an era when humans were alive or
That's
an
fine.
era at all. But even then, there's so much soft tissue. It's like, okay, how do you jump from a skull to a literal fleshed out face? And so that's the part that I just think is so fucking cool. So a trained sculptor who's familiar with facial anatomy usually works with a forensic anthropologist. So the anthropologist can kind of convey what they know in their area of expertise to the artist to kind of build this. And so then the artist uses clay to build up the facial features. The forensic anthropologist interprets skeletal features such as the subject's age, sex, ancestry, anatomical characteristics such as facial asymmetry, evidence of injuries. So for example, a broken nose or loss of teeth before death. So from there, the artist marks the skull with pins. And I don't think it's usually the actual skull because that's obviously a precious thing.
It was for a long time in my segment. It was often the actual skull, and they had very specific non-hardening clay that they would do a lattice work over the actual skull and then make the reconstruction, photograph it, take everything off, clean it, and return the skull.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you're dealing with millimeters of difference that would affect the entire appearance, that does make sense. Oh my God, it's just so cool. So the artist will mark the skull with these pins to indicate the depths of tissue that will be added to it. So they're kind of working topographically. You're going to have, the pins are going to be longer on your cheeks where there's more flesh and not as long on the sides of your forehead where there's not so much. The measurements of these depths is based on studies of males and females of different ancestral groups spanning a century. Then the artist begins to rebuild the face by filling in around those markers, those pins with clay.
Yep.
They refine features around artificial eyes, so they'll stick eyeballs in there too, and form the lip shape. And then lastly, they smooth the facial contours and add subtle details to accurately personalize the reconstruction. So eyebrows.
Yep.
While facial reconstruction is used a lot in human identification investigations and is frequently applied to archaeological investigations to depict people's faces, the technique receives a lot of criticism from both science and art perspectives. So from a scientific standpoint, there is the argument, and this is so valid, that the method is way too subjective and heavily reliant on the artistic skill of the individual practitioner. It kind of brought to mind that Netflix documentary, Tell Them You Love Me.
Oh.
Of the woman who's helping this guy who he's severely disabled. He can't communicate verbally. And she's helping him type.
Okay.
And so as he starts to be able to communicate, he just opens up and he's in college and writing papers and just has this really rich, complex inner life. And then it comes out that it's entirely possible. And I think she went to prison for, I'm not going to say it, but
Okay.
Basically she was projecting that what she was helping him type was not, they weren't his words or his thoughts or emotions. She was completely projecting on him.
Oh, shit.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
But I think that even if something like that is so subconscious for the practitioner, in this case the artist, it still could potentially have like a huge effect on the outcome, on the final result.
Right.
So the attempts to automate the process, so like through like computers and stuff, have been poorly received and have not been super successful in forensic investigations as of yet. I am assuming that is gonna get better in the future. Accuracy studies have also reported variable results, which has led to claims of unreliability and a lack of reproducibility. So reproduction being a pretty fucking important factor when it comes to like science. So there are definitely critics of this, but I did want to talk about the history of facial reconstruction because that too is kind of wild. So according to the Guinness World Records, a German anatomist and anthropologist Hermann Welker.
Yep.
Herm.
Old Herm.
Had a particular interest in interpreting a person's face from the shape and form of their skull. He was interested in determining what historical figures must have looked like. And in 1957, he studied and wrote about the form of Dante's skull. Dante as in the Italian poet, Dante.
His
Divine
Inferno.
Comedy. Yeah. His Inferno. His Peak. So this is the mid-19th century. It wasn't until 1883 that Welker proposed that the form of muscles and soft tissue on a person's face could be characterized and superimposed on an actual skull to get an idea of what a person looked like. And when I said the actual skull earlier, I just meant like modern technology. Could we not like make a cast and a mold of it? Obviously, back then they would use the actual skull. Herman was really fucking cool. So I do have a little bit more about him from Wikipedia just because he just seems like he was kind of nutty and weird and had all these like, at the time, weird ideas. And I don't know, he just sounds like a nut. I love him.
Yeah.
Along with his anatomical duties, Welker was also a specialist in the fields of anthropology, ethnology, microscopy, and biology. So he was smart when it came to like the bod. He published numerous articles on each of these subjects. In 1854, he devised a method for measuring blood volume in humans and animals. He also devised a method for measuring red blood cell volume and the eponymous Welker's angle, which I did Google and it still doesn't make sense to me. But that's named after him. So basically you have your parietal bones. They're two bones and they're essentially the top of your head. And these like fuse together when you're, you know, a baby.
Yep.
So you have like one of these bones has like an inferior angle to it. I don't like I really did try to understand what the fuck this was talking about and I just didn't get it. But something about the bones in the top of your head are named after him.
Okay.
He's also credited he's also credited with starting the first study of the persistence of friction ridge skin over time. So what I took this to mean is the parts of your body that encounter a lot of friction, such as your hands, how that kind of develops, deteriorates, whatever, over time.
Sure.
So he recorded his right hand print in 1856 and 1897.
Okay.
Publishing a study in 1898. So he just like studied his own hand. In 1889, Welker received a patent for the invention of galvanic spectacles, which were essentially battery-operated eyeglasses with nose-piece electrodes. And these glasses were used as a remedy for nasal congestion.
Oh.
I don't know if this like vibrated the snot out of your nose. I'm not sure. In addition, he conducted numerous studies of human skulls, including the famous skulls of, like I said, Dante and a guy named Friedrich Schiller. And this was kind of a rabbit hole in itself. So Friedrich Schiller was a German poet. And he died like a poet's death and didn't have a funeral and was like buried in a cheap coffin and put in a mausoleum in Germany. And this cheap coffin like burst over time and like mixed in with a bunch of other rotting corpses underground. And so when they tried to like dig him up to kind of recoup his remains, they didn't know for sure which skull was his.
Mm-hmm.
So like somebody assessed that it was the largest skull of the bunch. There were like 27 skull, like total bodies all jumbled up.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was such an ingenious poet, they were like, well, this is the biggest one. It's probably his. And then like his friend like took it home.
Oh, God.
The location of his actual skull is disputed.
Okay.
Because it was like lost, jumbled up, and then like kind of stolen. I don't know. So they have what they think is his skull in some museum in Germany now, but like they don't really know for sure that was his skull.
Got it.
So although Hermann Welker was among the first to reproduce 3D facial approximations from cranial remains, many sources acknowledge a guy named Wilhelm His Senior. Mm-hmm. His name is His, as the forerunner in advancing the technique. He was a Swiss-born German anatomist. It tripped me up. It's H-I-S. It tripped me up reading this.
Yeah.
He was a Swiss-born German anatomist, embryologist, and professor of anatomy at the University of Leipzig.
Ooh.
In 1894, his and a team of anatomists and physicians examined bones in Bach's burial place, as in the composer Bach.
Oh, not like B-O-X, like B-A-C-H apostrophe S.
Yes, ma'am.
Where Bach is buried.
Yes.
Got it.
To verify that those remains belonged to the composer. Mm-hmm. He believed the bones belonged to a man around 65 years of age, which was around Bach's age when he died. However, his lost some credibility when he relied on phrenology to support his hypothesis that it was Bach. He found a bump on the petrous part of the temporal bone near the ear and said that indicated musical talent.
Okay. We've debunked phrenology many times throughout history now, so let it go.
Yeah. Again, this is in the late 1900s.
Yeah, this is old school.
So that's why I like Herman more than his.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, they both made contributions. His used Bach's skull to reconstruct his face and did so by examining the tissue thickness of 37 cadavers to determine what it would look like on Bach's face.
Mm-hmm.
He hired Carl Seffner, an artist from his anatomy class, to do the facial reconstruction by building up the clay on a cast of Bach's skull. Okay, that's where I got it. It was a cast of the skull.
Okay.
Seffner then used paintings of Bach to help him sculpt the features that tissue thickness could not determine. Therefore, the resulting model looked like contemporary paintings and engravings of Bach. And now that I'm thinking about it, I have it's Mozart.
Oh,
I have a bust
God's
of Mozart
sakes.
right here on my desk.
That's not Bach.
It's not Bach, but it's a bust.
You done Bach'd up.
I busted it. I don't know why his nose is gray. I'm going to have to take a magic eraser to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's my background, a little bit of psych. And now I'm going to tell you about a guy that I know we've discussed before. I do not remember what episode. It doesn't matter because he's so fucking creepy. And this is what that episode of Forensic Files was about. This is why I latched onto this idea.
Latch, baby, latch. So
today I'm going to be telling you, retelling you, elaborating on John List.
This motherfucker.
So John List seemed to have the perfect life and family. In 1971, he lived in Westfield, New Jersey, with his wife, 3 teenage children, and his mother.
Mm-hmm.
A joy. He worked as an accountant and had a mansion with 19 rooms, including a fucking ballroom, marble fireplaces, and a Tiffany skylight. What I wouldn't give.
I know, right?
He attended church every Sunday with his family. They were devout Lutherans. I don't really know what a devout Lutheran is, but...
I know. As a Lutheran, how devout can you really get? It's already like the lightest form of Christianity. It's the most fucking flavored sparkling water Christianity. Just a whisper of flavor.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A hint.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know... I don't know. I'm not going to bother trying to explain this man's psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he also taught Sunday school. Everything seemed great on the surface, but that was the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
So John had lost his job at the New Jersey bank. He tried finding employment, but nothing panned out. He also didn't tell his family that he had lost his job, and which was a massive loss of income.
Mm-hmm.
He said he just didn't want to stress him out. Didn't want to lose our 19-room home where he lived with his mother and his family. Like, okay, I understand the pressure there.
Right.
So he just pretended to go to work every morning. He spent the mornings at the train station reading newspapers and skimming money from his mother's bank accounts to pay their mortgage. He was too proud to go on welfare, obviously too proud to tell his family what had happened.
Not too proud to commit murder, though.
Oh, no.
Not too proud for that.
No. Mm-mm. He didn't want to violate the principles of self-sufficiency that he had learned from his father because he is a principled man of morals.
Yeah.
So he came up with a solution, which was to murder his mother, his wife, and his 3 teenage children.
He's a fucking family annihilator.
Yeah, man.
Ugh.
Oh, maybe that was the episode, Family Annihilators.
It might have been.
It might have been. On November 9th, 1971, List shot and killed his wife, Helen, his 16-year-old daughter, Patricia, his 15-year-old son, John Jr., his 13-year-old son, Frederick, and his 85-year-old mother, Alma.
Over debt.
Yeah.
Over money. Took
Losing
out an
his job and being
entire
too-
family.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never-
family.
I'll never understand it.
He also, systematically killed each one of his kids as they got home from school. And, one of his sons, I think the 15-year-old, fought back.
Oh.
He didn't kill him right away. Yeah.
At least have the fucking kindness to kill me in my sleep when I have no idea it's happening. Please and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking rude.
Really rude. I just don't want to wake up. Just don't let me wake up. Get
Well,
home
it's
from a
hard.
good day of school.
Mm-hmm. Have your snack, do your homework, play your video games.
I think it was a Friday, too. You're
Let me
excited
have
to
the
get home
weekend.
from school on a Friday.
Ugh. What a fucking dick.
Yeah, okay. So Helen, the wife, was shot in the kitchen as she sipped her morning coffee. Then he went upstairs to, I believe, the 3rd floor bedroom where his mother lived, shot her. I think he killed her in her sleep.
Oh, okay. Well, good for her.
Good for her. So when Patricia and Frederick returned home from school, he shot them as well. He then made himself a sandwich, closed out his bank accounts. Oh my God, that was it. And went on to cheer his other son, the 15-year-old son, at his high school soccer game.
What?
Cheered him on at the soccer game, was like, all right, John Jr., let's go home. Gave him a ride home, and then shot him in the chest when they got home.
I did not remember that detail.
Mm-hmm. And that is so far from the creepiest thing about this. So he laid the bodies on top of sleeping bags in the ballroom
Ugh.
and composed a note to his pastor.
Oh, good.
In the note, he explained that he feared that his family was going to be confronted with poverty. And
Better kill them because it would be better to be dead than be poor.
Well, his thought process was if they were poor, if they, were impoverished, his family would turn away from God. It would be harder to believe in God if they became poor.
Jesus was poor.
Yeah. So he thought killing them was the only way that they would go to heaven. So he put them on sleeping bags. He put them all in the ballroom. He then cleaned the crime scenes and used scissors. Oh, God, this is all coming back to me.
No.
And used scissors to remove his face from every photo in the whole house.
Oh, that's right.
He just went around and cut his own face out of all the photos.
Don't giggle.
It's so fucking gross. He canceled all deliveries and contacted his kids' schools to let them know that they would be going on vacation for a while.
Forever.
Then he slept in his own bed for one last night and walked out of the house the next morning. I don't think he took a single thing with him.
Honestly, I'm so mad he didn't kill himself.
Well, we'll get to why he didn't kill himself.
Yeah.
He also, like, turned the AC, like, way up.
Yup.
And, like,
Preserves the bodies.
Blasted organ music through the intercom system.
That's fucking horrifying. But the AC thing is to confuse cause of death.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. It would take neighbors about a month to notice that they hadn't seen anyone at the List home.
I'm sorry. I don't know how rural this area is, so
It's
can't.
not. It's suburban New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. No. If I didn't see my neighbors for like a week, we have a group chat.
Mm-hmm.
I would be checking. I'd be knocking.
Mm-hmm.
Especially my neighbors with kids. They play outside.
Yep. These are like teenage kids. They're like 15, 13.
There's no way you wouldn't see them within a couple days. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes me mad. Like, that's such a... I don't want to be... I'm a judgmental person, okay? So it is what it is. But, like, I don't want to be too judgmental, but community care is so fucking important. Knowing your neighbors is so fucking important. Checking on each other is so fucking important. It just pisses me off that a family could be lying cold, dead, rotting 100 yards away from where you are living.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody notices. And it's not like it's an apartment complex. Like in an apartment complex, I actually kind of get it because I did not want to fucking know my neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
But in like a home.
Well, they stole your packages.
Yeah. Fuck that bitch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll never forgive her. My mattress topper. I took
Yes.
it all the way to the top.
The mattress topper. That
The
was
saga.
That was your fucking line.
It was over. I didn't renew my lease after that. I moved in with Bill. It was done. I would have gladly had another year of living alone.
Mm-hmm.
But no. Mm-mm. Anyway,
that bitch.
That just makes me disappointed and really sad that it took that long for neighbors to notice there was no activity in that house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so approximately a month. It was like 2 days short of a full month. On December 7th, police dropped by. I'm assuming there was a wellness check issued. They were greeted by the organ music playing through the intercom system, and they found the note.
And no one noticed the sounds of incessant, nonstop organ music coming from that. This is wild to me.
I mean, maybe it wasn't on full blast. In my mind, it was, but maybe it wasn't.
But also, imagine setting that up so that whoever finds them walks into a cold, desolate home full of dead bodies with organ music. I can't.
I think that was his devout Lutheran talking, the organ music.
No.
So then the FBI found his car parked at JFK Airport, but he wasn't on any kind of flight list thing.
So he hadn't flown, he just ditched his car there?
I don't believe that they had any record of him actually flying anywhere. They just found his car there.
Okay.
He could have flown somewhere under a different name. It was the 70s.
Okay, so it was not a post 9/11 situation.
Absolutely not. You could just breeze into an airport and be
the
like,
airport was like a bus station.
My name is Jim Smith. I need a one-way ticket to Bermuda, and I've got this jug of questionable liquid.
And here's
I'm checking
cash.
my gun, and I'm paying in cash.
Yeah. I'd prefer to carry on my gun, please.
Actually, speaking of flying, I don't think this is in my notes, but it was later on, they thought that John List might have been D.B. Cooper because the D.B. Cooper thing happened 2 weeks after he disappeared.
Weird timing.
Mm-hmm. Very weird timing. So that was a conspiracy theory. I don't think he was D.B. Cooper.
Yeah, but I mean,
they kind of.
I wonder if we'll
similar.
ever know.
I kind of hope not. You know, I love an unsolved charade.
I hate an unsolved charade, so I have different feelings on that.
So, no trace of List to be found. They had no leads, no clues. 15 years later.
Yeah.
Bernard Tracy, a member of the Westfield Police Department, approached Weekly World News in hopes that they would run a story on John List, the fugitive. But again, no new information came forward. However, a woman named Wanda Flannery of Aurora, Colorado, so we're going from New Jersey to Colorado, thought that the photo in the tabloid, which was the last known photo of John List, it's like the one that you Google John List, it's the one that pops up. She thought that he looked a lot like her neighbor, a guy named Bob Clark.
See, keep an eye on your neighbors. Get to know your fucking neighbors. One of them might be John motherfucking List.
Yep. So,
or TB fucking Cooper.
Or both. So Wanda approaches Bob's wife, Dolores, and Dolores was like, I'm sorry, my husband is not John List. Like, you're fucking nuts. Shortly after that, the Clarks relocated to Richmond, Virginia due to some financial difficulties caused by Bob's poor financial decisions.
Interesting.
Which is
how history repeats itself. Suddenly, you might be John List. Oh no, we're broke. We gotta move.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't believe what our neighbor said today.
Mm-hmm.
That you look like John List. Oh shit, we're moving to Richmond.
Yep.
So still no leads. Tracy, who is the member of the police department, reached out to America's Most Wanted, and after 2 tries, the producers decided to look into the situation, which proved to be a massive turning point in this case.
America's Most Wanted, Unsolved Mysteries are such like fucking amazing resources. I mean, I know America's Most Wanted isn't on anymore, but the Unsolved Mysteries reboot on Netflix has led to a couple of cases being solved from people just seeing it.
So good. It's
so good.
The body that like jumped from, they like found it on the roof.
Yes.
That one I cannot wrap my head around.
No, that keeps me up at night. That one hasn't been solved yet either.
It's so fucking nuts. That's my favorite episode of the new one. It's so crazy. I don't get it.
No.
Aliens.
Yeah, literally.
That is the simplest explanation.
I like the one about ghosts and the one about aliens.
The tsunami ghosts?
Yes.
Oh, girl.
That episode's so good.
So good. Okay, so in 1989, America's Most Wanted hired forensic sculptor Frank A. Bender, who is the hero here. Well, one of many heroes. Hired him to fashion a bust of what List may look like 18 years after that last known photograph.
Okay.
They also brought on Dr. Richard Walter of the Michigan Department of Corrections to offer a profile of List as an aid to the reconstruction. So we have this criminal profiler who's like, okay, devout Lutheran, again, whatever the fuck that means. He's this old, he's financially irresponsible, he's like a white man in this age group. You know, this is how he grew up. These are his like morals, blah, blah, blah. And all of that plays a role in reconstructing his appearance over time. So Walter thought that because List was religious, it was doubtful that he would change his appearance with plastic surgery. He also wasn't very vain, so he wouldn't be wearing like anything remotely stylish. And because of his devoutness, this would also highly suggest that his lifestyle wouldn't be one of diet and exercise. Again, the vanity thing.
Was it known if, quote unquote, Bob was like involved with the church locally, the Lutheran church as well?
I think he was.
Yeah, because that would make sense and be a clue.
I mean, I don't think after killing your whole family over your religious views, you would suddenly
just turn
not
away.
be religious.
Well, right. But if he, changed denominations or something to fly under the radar because he was like a known Lutheran on the prowl. Who knows?
A known Lutheran.
That's me. Known Lutheran Amanda Jacobson turns from her faith.
Yes, absolutely.
At 13 years old because she got confirmed and decided, I don't want to go to church anymore. This is boring.
That's exactly what happened to me. I got confirmed because my priest told me that if I got confirmed while not believing all the tenets, specifically the one about gay people, then I was lying to God and I would go to hell. So I got confirmed and then stopped going to church.
Bye, bitch.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay, so then FBI specialist Gene O'Donnell comes along, he was able to use computer technology and that photo of List to age the likeness in the image by adding gray and receding hair and like fleshy jowls.
Yep.
And one of these sources credited Gene with this, but the Forensic Files episode talks about Frank Bender, the forensic sculptor. He like learned all this stuff about John List. He goes to a thrift store and like picks out a pair of glasses that he thought John List would likely be wearing around this time, 18 years later. And there is I just want you to go look at the I only have one picture on the drive right now.
Okay, I'm looking.
The one on the left is the bust. The one on the right is an actual photo of John List.
How did he nail this?
He fucking nailed it.
Like,
they are
corporate wants you to find
identical.
the difference between these two photos.
The glasses.
It's the same. They're the same.
And they are not the same glasses that he had 18 years earlier. He got new glasses.
Yeah. And this guy, this artist, just like put himself in the mindset of this person based on the information that he had and tried to imagine what he would choose for himself. Which is part of the art of forensic sculpting, is like that's using like the psychological profile.
Yes.
To help with these details is so fucking amazing.
And when it's done right, this
is shocking.
Brilliant. But
this
that's
is shocking.
also where that subjectivity comes in.
Yep.
That people's bias, projections, whatever, can have a huge effect on the outcome.
Well, right. And it's why we need to have such a diverse array of people in these positions so that all of these internal biases that every single human being holds in different ways can be, I don't know if overcome is the right word, but like,
well, we could say counteracted. Because everyone has bias.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of understanding it, recognizing it, and working to tamp it down.
Well, right. And imagine, like a predominantly white field of forensics making these recreations of like Black, brown, indigenous people. There's room for error based on internal biases and stereotypes and all kinds of shit.
I mean, the guy at the top in my first part was using phrenology.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. For any of your like shitty uncles who are like, diversity ruins America, it's like, fucking no, it doesn't. We literally need it.
Yes, we need it
to actually serve the public.
Yep.
Because I don't know what to tell you, folks. People of color exist.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
The fuck?
Jesus Christ. But this is...
It's the definition
white guy nailed
of uncanny.
This white guy. Like, this is...
Exactly. It's a white guy doing a bust of a white guy. Of course he got in there.
Would have assumed that John List sat for this sculpture.
And the sculptor would still be crazy talented if that had been the case. Like, it's nuts.
This is mind-blowing. Even like the lines at the nose and mouth, the creases at the eyes.
The fleshy jowls.
It's shocking.
It's the shape of his
it's unbelievable. I'm obsessed.
His lower lip going out just a little bit farther than his upper lip.
Yeah, which we'll talk about a little bit in my section, but like lips, nose, and brow, or not necessarily brow, but like lips, nose, and the areas around the eyes can be some of the hardest to recreate because especially if you have like a source skull, because there is not really prominent portions of the skull that reflect.
That's all your soft tissue.
Right, exactly what the soft tissue would develop into. Like your nose, you can get the bone, but like if you have been a heavy drinker your whole life, certain foods that you eat, like things change the soft tissue of your face.
Yeah.
I can't.
So as you may have guessed, it turns out that Bob Clark was John List.
Who knew?
And the police arrested him in Virginia on June 1st, 1989, around 10 days after his America's Most Wanted episode aired. So this worked quick.
Really well, yeah.
In his trial in 1990, his lawyers argued that List suffered from PTSD from her service in World War II and Korea.
Okay.
Expert psychologists thought that he was going through a midlife crisis, but even that was not an excuse for what he did.
None of it is.
The jury found List guilty, and a judge sentenced him to 5 life terms in a New Jersey prison.
Bye-bye.
In 2002, in an interview with Connie Chung, List was asked why he didn't just take his own fucking life if he was so overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And he answered that he thought that suicide would have prevented him from getting into heaven, and he wanted to be reunited there with his family one day.
You know what's literally in the 10 Commandments? You fucker.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide's going to send you to hell, but murdering your entire family and your mother in cold blood isn't? Okay. Find a new god.
Yeah.
Jesus
well,
fucking
to save
Christ.
them from becoming poor and turning away from the church.
Right, which would be so much worse than just being alive.
So this fucker died in 2008. Goodbye.
Bye, bitch.
Next.
Next. Fuck you.
So I know that we've covered John List before, but that case is just so shocking, and this bust is so shocking, and just the way the success of that forensic sculpting Frank Bender, it solved the case after years of nothing.
That's amazing.
He would have gotten away with it if they hadn't incorporated this forensic sculptor.
1000%. 1000%. Because
he'd be in heaven today.
Yeah, really. That's such a spot on recreation that putting that photo out, like his goose was cooked. It was done.
I just think that's so fucking cool.
It's
I love
so
it.
fucking cool.
I love it.
Well done.
Thank you.
I love it.
Well, should we hear another word from our sponsors?
Let's hear it.
They say AI is going to take over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got your chat bots, you got your GPT or whatever virtual assistants, and eventually humans are obsolete. And
I'm ready.
I'm not saying I'm looking forward to that, but here's one robot that already exists and is making my life and my kitties' lives a lot better, and that is Litter Robot.
Oh, I'm so obsessed. I'm so obsessed with Litter Robot. Litter Robot is the solution to all of your litter box problems. Problems you may not have even noticed you had until you have a litter robot, and then you're like, wait, what? I've been spending my whole life scooping litter? What is happening? What have I done? Never scoop again with Litter Robot. Okay, Litter Robot's self-cleaning technology automatically cleans after every use, so your cats will always have a fresh bed of litter to do their business, and your friends won't think your house smells like a litter box. Let me tell you, I was nervous about the transition from traditional litter box to Litter Robot, because you unpack the Litter Robot and you're like, whoa, this is a big boy. Like, what are my cats going to be terrified of this? I'm a little terrified of this. So when we first set it up, we had their regular litter box next to it and set up the Litter Robot. They never even touched the regular litter box again. They were like, what is this trash? I will only be using the Litter Robot, please and thank you. And get this, okay? Litter Robot will send you a notification to your phone when it needs to be emptied. If you have a husband who is very funny, you can even give it a silly little name that's too inappropriate to say in this ad. And then you get an update with data and insights to stay on top of your cat's health. I know when Beans just went to the robot. And and then I know how much she weighs and like how frequently she's going. It's amazing. It does not get any easier than this, and your cat will thank you. Join over 1 million happy pets and pet parents who have upgraded to Litter Robot. What are you waiting for? Never scoop litter again.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Whisker is currently offering $50 off Litter Robot bundles as a special offer to listeners of this show. Go to stopscooping.com/gals. And use promo code GALS to save an additional $50 on any Litter Robot bundle. That's $100 off any Litter Robot bundle at stopscooping.com/gals. And use promo code GALS. One more time, stopscooping.com/gals. Promo code GALS. Treat your whole life.
Treat it. So I wanted to do something a little different this week. And rather than cover a specific case that was solved with forensic sculpting, talk about a foremother of forensic sculpting and her incredible career, Betty Pat Gatliff. Did you come across her at all in your research?
Betty Pat, no.
Betty Pat, oh, she's badass. She was born August 31st, 1930 in El Reno, Oklahoma, a Virgo.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. She was the daughter of artists. Her father was a builder and carpenter and architect. Her dad's name was Richard, Old Dick. And her mother, Ella, was a homemaker and a quilt maker. She had her own quilting business.
Oh, wow.
I know. The artistry of quilt making.
A quilt maker, yeah.
Your grandma does it.
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing at it.
I have some really gorgeous quilts from her.
Gatliff, super smart, most smartest. She studied mathematics and art at Oklahoma College for Women and graduated in 1951, receiving a Bachelor of Arts degree. That school still exists, but it's now known as University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma, and it is not just a women's college anymore. She spent most of her life an hour away in Norman, Oklahoma. This bitch loved Oklahoma. She lived there her whole goddamn life.
She must love the musical.
Yeah, who doesn't? Mm-hmm. Upon graduation, she worked as a draftsman for Phillips Petroleum before working for 27 years in civil service, first for the Navy as a medical and technical illustrator at the Navy base in Norman, and then at the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration in Oklahoma City, where she did illustrations and accident reconstructions and worked on experiments with crash test dummies.
Cool.
She would retire from the FAA at the age of 49 and open a home studio for freelance work for the next 40 years of her life.
Plane crash accident reconstruction.
Yeah, honey. And that was kind of her launch point into more forensic sculpting using that background.
Would you say she took off from there?
She did really take off from there. You would have been obsessed with her house. Her home and studio was in Norman, Oklahoma, and was filled with playful skull-shaped cookie jars and knickknacks.
Oh, my God.
She had a collection. If you're following along in my notes, there are a couple of photos included. You can see in the background of this first picture, just right in the notes. They're holding a skull. That's her with the red lipstick. We'll get to the red lipstick.
Oh, my God. She's adorable.
Yeah, she's adorable. But on the bookshelf behind her, there are 3 skulls in plain view. And then you can see in some of the pictures behind the other 2 in the photo, definitely at least 1 more skull. There's got to be a bust above that guy. Her house was covered.
Mm-hmm.
She had a collection of at least 400 large belt buckles, many adorned with skulls as well. She had a treasure trove of cowboy hats, some of which she stored on bronze busts of her reconstructed skulls.
Stop it.
Yeah, she was a hoot and a half. She would never marry and has no direct descendants. Good for her.
Good for her.
But was survived by 2 nephews and many great nibblings and cousins. Quote, her exact words, which I heard her say more than once, were...
Did you say nibblings?
Nibblings. Yeah, it's like a cute little term for, all the little kids in my life are nibblings, nieces, nephews.
Siblings.
Yeah.
Nibblings. I've never heard of that.
Cute kids that you're in the lives of, even if you're not necessarily directly related to them.
Aw.
Quote, her exact words, which I heard her say more than once, were she'd never met a man she'd put up with, her nephew said. If this woman weren't already dead, I would die for her.
Yeah.
Quote, she probably was the most content, happiest, positive person, her nephew said. I never saw her depressed a single day. And, he said, she always had a flashy side. Betty Pat was precise. She would write her name as Betty Pat, period. With a period, because she said that was the correct abbreviation of Patricia.
Oh, I
know
love her.
You don't love. I wondered if you would love that.
No, I do. I do.
Her style was full-blown Western. She favored cowboy boots and hats. Her collection of Native American turquoise was stunning, especially her concho belts and bolo ties. Loved a bolo.
Mm.
After much study, she would often identify, and pretty quickly, she was so drawn to indigenous art. She would identify the indigenous artists who created the pieces and had the utmost love and respect for indigenous art.
Mm.
She liked her Corvettes like she liked her lipsticks, red.
Oh my God.
In her younger years, she drove Corvettes and convertibles. Later in life, Betty Pat had a big blue Lincoln Town car in which she'd chauffeur a group of elderly friends to Norman's Bethel Baptist Church every Sunday.
Holy shit.
She was also a skilled bowler. Betty Pat had shelves upon shelves of bowling trophies. You could not outbowl this bitch.
Oh my God. This is my dream.
Yeah, she's incredible. So it was at the FAA where Gatliff would meet forensic anthropologist Dr. Clyde Snow. Snow was the FAA facility's chief of physical anthropology. So while she was kind of in charge at the time of like reconstructing wreckage and sketching out accidents, he focused more on victims in those accidents.
Okay.
Dr. Snow was a famed forensic anthropologist who also consulted with the state medical examiner's office. And Snow would recommend that Gatliff learn the techniques of Wilton Krogman's book, The Human Skeleton in Forensic Medicine, which came out in 1962, which involved a new technique of using clay to put a face on an existing skull. Gatliff thought this approach might help identify plane crash victims even after being burned in the wreckage, because a lot of times the skull would be well enough intact to be able to make a recreation of their face so that they could be identified. She worked her first case in 1967 when a young Native American man was murdered while hitchhiking. The police had been unable to identify the victim based on the remains that they had, so they approached Betty Pat and Dr. Snow, asking them to use the new clay forensic technique to reconstruct the victim's face. Snow was to use his forensic training to identify ancestry, gender, and approximate age, while Gatliff was to use her artistic training to recreate a face based on the skull and other information gleaned from the investigation and evidence. At first, Betty Pat was not very enthusiastic. She said, I hadn't done it before and I didn't want to do it. I think she felt a lot of pressure because you're not just focusing on like the mechanics of an accident. These are like real people. So I can actually understand that reservation. Be like, I've never done this. There's so much at stake here. This is a real person's life with family. What if I fuck this up?
And going back to that subjective nature of this craft, it's like it would be a lot of pressure.
Yep. But her keen artistic skill set worked really, really well. And she would end up finding this process quite enjoyable and would be ultimately validated with her recreation leading to his identification.
Oh.
She said, quote, it was kind of fun, like putting a puzzle together without a picture. And I just have to say, we have to acknowledge how amazing it is that this was her first reconstruction of a human face. And it led to a positive identification and gave Betty Pat the confidence to continue this work. And she worked on so many cases. And I have to imagine brought a lot of families peace and provided justice for a lot of people who were unidentified.
That's really incredible that she was like one of the first people to use this practice as like sort of an established, like they put it out in a book.
Yeah, this was a brand new method.
Yeah.
This was not widely used yet in the 60s.
So
the book had just come out and they were like
training herself how to do it.
And she was fucking good at it. So Betty Pat, working with anthropologist Dr. Clyde Snow, developed the Gatliff Snow American Tissue Depth Method, which expanded on Herman Welker's work. This identified features on the skull that could be used as landmarks for building a face. So you talked about this a little bit. The skull is a map that tells the sculptor where the eyelids converge, where the lips begin, and the approximate length and width of the nose. And then the tissue depth markers are primarily based on factors related to age, ethnicity, and gender, and they vary all over the face. So like, we'll get to it. So Snow likes to have as many bones as he can get for a case, even if they're not in the face, because that can help him identify other possible factors and like what this person looked like. At minimum, he wants a skull and preferably a hip bone known as the pubic symphysis. That bone, the pubic symphysis, changes its surface texture with advancing age. So that helps guide that aspect, the age-related aspect of tissue depth. If you know how old the unidentified person is, then you'll know kind of the texture and tissue depth of areas of the face to a better degree.
Yeah. We added jowls to John List and it looked exactly fucking like him.
Snow takes about 50 measurements on the skull and another 75 on the rest of the skeleton, and then he runs statistics. Doing so comes up with a list of probables on sex, age, race, height, weight, and even if they were right or left-handed, because bones in dominant areas are usually a few millimeters longer.
Ooh, cool.
Right? I think that's really cool, and I was actually noticing the other day that like the fingers on my left hand are a little thinner. Like my ring size on my left ring finger is not the same as my right. And I'm right-handed. Like I wonder if my right hand is like, my dominant hand is a little bigger.
A little beefier.
Probably. More muscular.
Yeah.
And then Snow passes the skull and any information he acquired to Betty Pat, and she does her art magic. Her reconstruction method involved gluing over 20 soft plastic eraser-like markers of varying lengths at key points that they termed landmarks onto the skull. The length would correspond with the average depth of tissue at certain points of the face. So the average depth was determined by charts created by Dr. Snow and other forensic anthropologists. And when they had more recently deceased bodies, they would literally poke needles into the faces to record the depths, factoring in age, gender, and ethnicity. So, like, imagine being the intern tasked with giving, like, acupuncture to a dead face to measure their tissue depth.
You know I would love that.
I know you would. Other general determinations that can be gleaned from remains include skin depth variations based on location. So you might get a 17 millimeter skin depth at the mid-jaw, but just 3.5 millimeters at the middle of the forehead because that skin is thinner and more tight over the forehead. So all of these little tiny details, they're mapping out. A person's ear length from top to bottom is also roughly equal to nose length, although ear length does tend to be longer in older people because your ears like continue to grow. So that detail can be used in reconstruction if, say, they don't have much of, say they have a skull where you have like the nose bone, but you don't have the ears on it.
Yeah.
They can determine with some decent accuracy, especially if they have a rough age, how big of ears to put on that face.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
That's so cool.
The width of the bone nasal aperture is about 3/5 the total nasal width. So that can help them figure out, just like we measured this part of the nose bone, and now we kind of know about how wide the nose would be. The mouth, your mouth generally aligns with the center of your eye sockets, which I never thought about. And the widest part of your chin. So yeah, if you like even take your fingers and just like move up and down from the corners of your mouth, that's pretty aligned.
So some of these things I learned like when we would do like portrait stuff in art class.
Drawing. Drawing and sculpture. To make a properly
so fucking cool.
proportioned face. This is all part of the forensic process. After gluing the precisely measured markers onto the skull, the markers would act as a guide, and the non-hardening clay, so they had this special non-hardening clay that could be peeled off, would be spread directly onto the cadaver skull, first in a lattice pattern like a hockey mask. And again, if you're following along in my notes, there's a photo for you to see. It's very terrifying.
Holy shit.
Yep.
Ooh.
Then they filled it in, and then they would reconstruct the remaining features and match wigs, put on eyebrows, things like that. Reconstructing the face would usually take around 3 to 5 pounds of clay for a reconstruction. Quote, the cranial architecture forms the face, and I simply do what the skull tells me to, she says.
Oh my God.
We're going to get to something really cool about the fact that they use real skulls in a minute, and I really want to say it, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but you're going to fucking love it.
Okay, great.
Although this method involves science, there was still a lot of art and guesswork involved. I mean, your case with the John List, like an artist's interpretation of how they think this person might have styled their hair, how they think this person might have worn accessories, glasses, things like that. That's all subject to the artist and the little information that they have, just doing the best they can. Snow said noses and lips were the hardest features for her to reconstruct. Quote, we can tell by the skull if someone had a particularly large nose, but otherwise we rely on anatomical knowledge, judgment, and intuition. Because the nose bone is not going to tell you the exact shape of the nose. It won't tell you how wide the nostril area is. Like, it doesn't really tell you that because that's all flesh and the cartilage rots away at some point. Sometimes we're closer than others. In those features where the bone structure gives little or no clue to the overlying tissues, like eyelids, lower parts of the nose, lips, and ears, Gatliff relied on informed guesswork based on anatomical knowledge and artistic experience. She drew on ophthalmology, dentistry, and a deep understanding of craniofacial anatomy to render her sculptures as accurately as possible.
That's something also that I just think is so fucking rad about this. Like we talked about Herman, who had a background in all sorts of shit, including like fucking red blood cells.
Yep.
But he had this huge breadth of knowledge.
And it
takes
all
that comes together I just think it's beautiful. It's fucking cool.
It's very fucking cool. Quote, there are some people out there, what they turn out doesn't look human. Snow told the Wall Street Journal in 1987. When Betty Pat does it, we know the end result will look like the person, which is
Betty Pat.
the height of praise.
Yes.
Whenever possible, an appropriate wig would be added. Selection of wig would be made easier if hair was found with the remains to choose color, length, texture, and style of hair. Prosthetic eyeballs based on the color of the hair if available. Otherwise, Gatliff used her, quote, first instinct, and eyebrows would be added to give a realistic gaze. So there must be genetic components that connect eye and hair color. Like certain recessive genes that show up in the hair's still there, but the eyes are gone. You can guess, oh, she's a redhead. She probably had like bluish green eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but people with black hair generally have
darker eyes. Blonde hair, you might have lighter, blue eyes. Like,
and it might
all
just
these things are connected.
Like you said earlier, it might just come down to like statistics, because obviously not all people with black hair have dark eyes. But like,
of course not.
If there's a 70% chance, then that's a pretty safe.
Yeah, you just go with what stats are out there and make your best judgment as an artist. And
then also the thing that I got with the eyes, like even if they weren't entirely accurate, it just helps to humanize it helps to humanize the bust, and also just for us, our brains, to recognize this as a human face.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Betty Pat then sandpapered and smoothed the clay to give it texture so that it would resemble real human skin. And that would also obviously be determined by like age. If they're younger, they might have more shrunken pores, blemishes, things like that. If they're like older and they're from an area where they'd be out in the sun a lot, they might put like sun marks and things on their face.
Yep.
Like they did that on the John List bust.
Yeah. He had like old man pockmarks.
Old like Mr. Burns marks.
Yeah.
Her detailed knowledge of facial anatomy and any information about the victim would all help her make informed guesses about the more artistic parts like the nose or hairstyle. She knew that the science and the skull could only take her so far. Quote, the reconstructions, never look exactly like the person, she told the Oklahoman in 2002. A skull will just tell you so much. The entire process would take her about 3 days. She's fast.
Work, bitch.
Yeah, seriously. She's fast, and frankly, she's equitable, because a 1980 article stated that Betty Pat's fee was $500 and Snow's fee was about $350, and a 1995 article, so 15 years later, also said her fee was still $500. So she didn't even raise her prices.
For 15 years.
Yeah, she's like, I'm
and
good.
And probably longer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she did this freelance almost until the day she died.
She just liked what she did.
Yeah. She did it well into her 80s. She's like, good for her.
I mean, inflation in Oklahoma, I don't know.
It's bad everywhere, let me tell you. After photographing the completed sculpture from various angles, Gatliff would gently clean off the clay and return the remains to the police. So she really did use these people's actual remains.
Was she doing the photographing also?
That I'm not sure of. They probably had teams that did that, if that wasn't her skill set. But knowing how many skills she has, I would not be surprised if she was.
Yeah, she's just cranking out identifications.
She's cranking her hogs.
She's cranking them.
The photographs would be given to the news media to solicit the public's help with identification and would remain the only evidence of her work. So she basically had to destroy her work every time she did a new piece.
Oh, my God.
Uh-huh. Which, wow. I mean, I think that would be hard, but also, going into it, like, yeah, this is a real person and their actual skull. I'm not going to be able to keep this. But,
yeah. And they had the photos and everything. That's what she's working towards anyway.
Exactly.
But yeah, just such a piece of literal art.
Yep.
It's like, well, time to get back in the clay bucket.
Yeah. And then when these would spark leads and eventually identifications, they would confirm them using scientific evidence such as dental x-rays, because they were using the real skull, so they had the teeth. Which we'll get to the teeth. The teeth are coming up.
Thank God.
Her career would span over 40 years, first as a government employee and then as a freelancer. She sculpted over 300 faces, producing about a 70% success rate.
What?
Yeah. She was fucking good.
Holy shit.
Quote, we only put a face on them as a last-ditch effort when nothing else panned out. So she was always like the last resort. Like, we can't identify them based on just the remains alone and any of the other evidence that we have. We're going to Betty Pat.
Oh, my God.
In solving a homicide, you first have to know who the victim is before you can know who the perpetrator is, so it can be a key to solving the crime. That's the reason I do it, is to help solve a crime. She also knew that such last-ditch efforts can take time. So it would only take her 3 days to make a bust, but she recalled how one victim was identified 15 years after photos of her reconstruction had started being published.
Oh, my God.
So it can take a while for these pictures to just get in front of enough people for them to get any leads.
Yeah.
She retired from the FAA in 1979 and worked as an instructor teaching workshops about her technique at the FBI Academy, the Cleveland Institute of Art, and the University of Oklahoma. She would demonstrate her technique to police officers and artists at workshops in 1987. And she told the group, as quoted by the Wall Street Journal, quote, I guarantee after these 4 days, you won't look at a person's face the same way ever again.
Oh.
And she's right.
Yeah.
I won't even look at a person's face the same way ever again after reading about her.
No, you're going to be like, the corners of your mouth match up perfectly with the
So
center
aligned with
of
the
your
middle of your eye
bone.
socket. Yeah. Holy shit. You're so beautiful.
I could make your face.
I could sculpt your face
Can I?
on your real skull. Can I have your skull when you die? You can have mine.
You can have mine, but
Well, you're definitely not dying before me. So you can have my skull. I'll put it in my will.
yes. God, I can't wait.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll try not to speed it up too much, but I'm really excited for you. So who
Hey,
knows what could
if
happen.
your skull is my consolation prize for your death,
That's pretty good.
that's pretty good.
That will take a lot of the ping of grief away, I think. You can talk to me every day. You can look at my little snaggletooth.
Oh my God, you'll be my little what's the skull? Auric in Hamlet.
Done. Little Mandy. In addition to law enforcement officers, Betty Pat students included a large range of specialists from doll makers to anaplastologists. So anaplastologists are specialists who make facial prosthetics, such as artificial noses and ears. She helped people like get their faces back by training this technique for other skills.
You can't
You could-
see
you
me
could
right
have a
now,
doll-
but my mouth is open.
I can see you, even though your camera got messed up. I can only see your mouth. But yeah, it's incredible. You could have a doll in your house right now that was made by a doll maker that used Betty Pat's training technique.
I mean, my only doll is Tressa, and she is
It could
not
be.
that accurate, but
It
that's
doesn't mean the doll maker's
incredible.
good. She still could have learned from Betty Pat.
Oh God, I love this so much.
She also liked to remind students that faces are asymmetrical and cannot be reduced to a mathematical formula, because there are people who are going to approach it like too analytically, too much by the stats. It's like, no, you have to tap into your instincts as an artist and remember that you're creating human beings, not like sculpture busts for a museum. You know what I mean?
And it's all an approximation, and like she said, no recreation is exactly
No, except for
looks
the John
exactly
List
like
guy.
right.
That's maybe the most shockingly accurate recreation I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I'll never get over that.
No.
From after teaching for a while, she continued working in your dream job as a freelance facial reconstructor. She would work out of a home studio in her house in Norman, Oklahoma, which she dubbed the Sculpture Lab.
Sculpture.
Yeah. No notes. It's perfect.
Betty Pat.
Bones would arrive to her doorstep by mail, sent from police departments, coroners, and medical examiners across the country.
Goddamn right,
With
that's
those-
my dream job.
With the stickers, you know how we have the human cremains sticker from that oddity shop? Well, they make the same producer make stickers that are red and say exempt human specimen.
oh my
and-
God.
We need a roll of that.
Yeah, I'm tracking
ASAP.
down those stickers.
Quote, I'm more amazed by the human skull every time I work with one, she told People magazine in 1980, dismissing the notion that her work was grisly. She loved it. What the creator has given us just can't be improved on. A devout Lutheran.
A devout Lutheran.
I think she was a Baptist, but yeah. The cranial architecture forms the face, and I simply do what the skull tells me to. I think everybody deserves to be identified, she told the Oklahoman newspaper in 2002. Family and friends need to have that closure and know what happened. Everybody's somebody's daughter or mother or cousin. Everybody's got somebody. As an artist, Gatliff admits, you have to force yourself not to make somebody more handsome than he is.
Oh.
You gotta stay true to the facts. I love that little. So I just wanted to round this out with some of her like notable work that she's done.
Okay.
Betty Pat reconstructed the face of King Tut using a plaster skull casting. She recreated victims of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, soldiers who died at the Battle of Little Bighorn, and members of Imperial Russia's Romanov family.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's seen some shit.
Resume.
Oh, yeah. And that's just like a tiny little cross-section of it. In 1978, the U.S. government began an investigation into the Kennedy assassination, and Betty Pat would create life-size models of Kennedy's head to use in trajectory tests.
Cool.
Right?
Oh.
We choose to hire Betty Pat.
Yes.
In 1979, Mary Ann Bartles was a 29-year-old woman who was found murdered, alongside her daughter in Amberg, Wisconsin in October of 1979. Obviously, we didn't know this was Mary Ann at the time, but now we have this information. The pair were last seen leaving for a camping trip with a male companion the month before. The man died by suicide before he could be questioned by police. Several residents of Saginaw, Michigan recognized Betty Pat's reconstruction of Mary Bartles, who had disappeared with a male companion that last September in 1978. And so she made this recreation. It was recognized and they were able to identify this was Betty Pat. So her daughter would have been this young woman. And they were connected with this guy who died by suicide, and they could determine, even though he was dead, that he had killed them.
You said Betty Pat, but I think you meant Mary.
Oh, sorry. I meant Mary.
Okay.
But yeah. Yes.
Wow, that's so cool.
In 1980, she sculpted facial recognitions of the 9 unidentified victims of 1970s serial killer John Wayne Gacy, who had 33 total known victims, but 9 of them were unidentified. Some to this day unidentified.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know. She used calipers, spatula, and modeling clay, and Snow used computer calculations, because it's the 80s now, of probability based on the known characteristics of the victims. All were Caucasian and male, with most in their late teens or early 20s. They were so fucking young. Snow also looked for markers of disease, anatomical peculiarities, or injuries that could have affected their facial features during life.
Like the broken nose.
Yep, exactly. During the facial reconstructions, Betty Pat used a small rolling pin and ruler to shape clay into a pair of lips. Now, this is where we're going to get into the teeth. Yes. I think I'll have the mouth open on this one, she said, as a Chicago Sun-Times reporter looked on. He has nice front teeth. Somebody may recognize him by them. Ooh. So this was a strategy. If they had like striking teeth, she would fashion the lips onto the skull to keep the original teeth exposed so that people could identify them. Of the Gacy victim recreations, she was most proud of what was known only as body number 5, although she acknowledged that the likeness, or any of her other efforts really, as it isn't an exact science, could range from rather poor, her words, to startlingly faithful, her words. She had done his face with a smile to reveal crooked teeth in hopes to help with the identification. She would show the teeth whenever possible because, as she noted, the teeth were, quote, the only part of the skull a family's ever seen. I would be identified immediately by teeth alone.
Me too.
Immediately. Yeah.
Oh my God. That is so. And that's part of the artistry that comes in and like that following your intuition. There's no fucking formula. You can't do all of these the same way. You have to think about it.
Exactly. I, as an artist, feel like these teeth are identifiable in some way. I'm choosing to display them in the hopes that will help. Unfortunately for Betty Pat, body number 5 wouldn't be identified until after her death in October of 2021 by DNA. And there is a picture in my notes that you'll see as well. So this is a picture of Frances Wayne Alexander, who is victim body number 5. And while her recreation is far from perfect, if we look at a lot of the details, it nails a lot of aspects of his face. Like
that nose,
the bone structure, the shape, the nose is spot on, the jawline, hair thickness, even though the style is different, forehead, nose, and the lips, very close. And I think that if the photo of Frances Wayne Alexander that we had was more straight on, it would even resemble the bust more.
Yes.
But it's like she just guessed like the length of his hair. And that's how close she got it. She picked the wig. He even parts it similarly. He just has it swooped up rather than down over his brow.
And the dark eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That
She did a really good job.
Yeah, she really did.
Although widely circulated, none of the 9 reconstructions would lead to an identification. But like I said, as of March of 2024, 4 would be identified through DNA. Quote, she often said they were her most frustrating challenge, said Karen T. Taylor, a forensic artist and protege of Betty Pat. She felt like some of the families didn't want to come forward. This is a quote from her nephew, James Gatliff, who had talked to her about this. And this is actually true. There was speculation and some truth that relatives didn't want to be associated with runaways or homeless children.
Or any sort of like gay activity that might have been.
Yup. A lot of these victims were, I mean, not a lot of them were young boys who like probably didn't even fucking know exactly what their sexual proclivities were yet. But some of the older guys were lured, with the promise of sex. Mm-hmm. Others might have wanted to believe that their sons and brothers were still alive, out there somewhere, and not among those buried in Gacy's crawl space. Ms. Gatliff reported that 2 young sisters believed they recognized their brother, but they said their mother wouldn't even consider or discuss a possibility, according to a book called Bodies of Evidence. It's a book on forensic science, and we have to read it.
Yep.
Specifically with Frances Alexander, her, favorite, like her, or I guess her most like beloved subject in this pocket of recreations, the family decided that Frances was alive and just not speaking to them. Like they were just in full denial. Quote, they just loved him, but they thought that he wanted nothing more to do with them. So that's why there was never a missing persons report and why when the bus circulated, they were in such deep denial that it was like, no, that's not him. He just took off and didn't want to talk to us ever again. And he's alive.
Well,
yeah, it's really sad.
That is one way of coping.
It is. It's not, I mean, we couldn't possibly know what we would do until we were in those circumstances, and God willing, we never are. I can't imagine what that would do to a family. It'd be devastating.
If believing that your son was alive and just leaving it at that
kept you breathing every day, I can't pass judgment on that. I really can't.
No.
In 1983, Gatliff worked with Dr. Snow on reconstructing the face of the famous mummy. I'm going to try really hard to get this right. Tutankhamun.
It's King Tut.
Tutankhamun.
It's King
right.
Tut.
King Tut. In work that would be featured in Life magazine and National Geographic World, this did not use a skull, like we said earlier, but rather a plaster casting of a skull made from radiographs of his mummy. And is King Tut the mummy voice mummy?
I don't think so.
Oh, damn it. So as I was reading that, I was just like, That's all I want. She helped a living victim in 1990. Much to her surprise, she was also enlisted to help find a living subject, a young salesman who had nearly died after being impaled during a car crash in 1990. Oh. Surgeons asked her to help them rebuild his skull by creating a model of what it was like before the accident. She said, quote, that was beyond my expertise.
What? Wait, what?
So she basically, this guy got into a horrible accident, but he survived. Okay. But I think had some like brain injury and they didn't know who he was. I don't think he even knew who he was. Oh, and so she, using all of this information that was given to her by the doctors, like x-rays, CAT scans, all this stuff, put together what she believed to be a recreation of what his skull would have been before the accident. She met the salesman. He was eventually identified as Mark.
So the goal was to identify the guy, not to like.
At first, I believe it was, which is why they reached out to her. But I think before she even got the chance to finish this, he was identified. But then she still continued this work. She met this guy, used a CT scan to build a clay reconstruction of his undamaged skull, and this enabled technicians to fashion a metal implant that returned many of his normal features after a 13-hour procedure.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
She literally gave someone their face back.
Oh, I just got chills.
It was, quote, the most excited I ever saw Betty, said her protege, Karen Taylor.
Oh, well, yeah, you could help.
I mean, she spends her whole
career.
Yeah, she spends her whole career trying to identify the dead and gets an opportunity to help someone alive. That had to have felt fucking amazing.
Yes. Plus, another notch on your resume. You need another one?
Really, as if she needs another one. But she's got enough belts for it, so put those notches on, girlfriend.
True. Big belt buckles.
She loved it. She has also used her skills to sculpt recreations of indigenous peoples that had been extinct for thousands of years.
Yes.
She was able to do so using in this particular case, using 2 indigenous skulls that had been found in the St. John's River Basin of a man who died around 3000 BC and a woman who lived about 2000 years ago. Jesus. And those sculptures that she created are, I believe, still on display in the Florida Museum of Natural History.
Wow.
And they are believed to be, or they are recreations of extinct tribes of Ais Indians, Ais. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Yeah. Oh, these are so cool.
Yeah, they're stunning. They're absolutely beautiful. And because she didn't have to necessarily try to perfectly recreate a specific person that like we're searching for in modern times, she was able to draw on her lifelong study of indigenous art and culture and apply a little bit more of that artistry. So you can actually tell the difference. Like these busts look more human than the ones where it's like, okay, we have to make sure we're getting this exact thing right to try and find this specific person. It's like, no, we're just actually making faces that would resemble, based on the forensic evidence we have, what the people of this tribe might have looked like at that time.
And it's more of like an aggregate look than an individual.
And they are truly stunning. They're beautiful.
The guy with his hair, his top knot, I love.
They're gorgeous. His work propelled the science of forensic sculpting forward, brought her work, sorry, did I say his?
Yes.
I don't know. It's fine. I'm melting. Her work propelled the science of forensic sculpting forward, brought a sense of dignity and respect to the practice, and will likely be considered foundational to the practice of forensic sculpting for years to come. Betty Pat died in the hospital from complications after a stroke in her beloved Oklahoma City on January 5th of 2020. She lived a long and incredibly influential life and helped countless families get answers and find peace.
Well,
and if you scroll a little farther, there's a picture of Betty Pat in one of her famous bolos.
And a chambray cowboy shirt.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Her hairstyle is epic.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Anyway, that's Betty Pat. Isn't she fascinating?
Have a new obsession. And that
I love
is
it.
with Betty Pat and with forensic sculpting. Oh my God, I'm so glad you covered her.
I know, right?
Oh, what a delicious episode.
Such a delicious episode. Thank you so much.
Incredible. This might be up there with
us.
one of my new favorites. Yeah, thanks us.
I learned so much about the human face.
It makes me want to like sculpt a head. Like, I want to take like a community ed course.
Let's fucking do it. Why not?
Why not? It's Hot Girl Summer.
Hot Girl Summer. Let's go sculpt.
Well, thank you to us. Again, happy birthday to Kayla. Check out Black True Crime Podcast. Holy shit. I got to go take a lay down.
Yeah, you do.
All right.
This was a lot.
Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Wine and Crime. Our cover art is by Danielle Sylvan. Music by Phil Young and Corey Wendell. Editing by Jonathan Camp. Our production manager is Andrea Gardner. For photos and sources, check out our blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com. You can follow us on all the socials at Wine and Crime Pod. If you have questions, answers, or recommendations to share, email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to spread the word. If you'd like to show your support and get access to all sorts of wine-fueled bonus content, visit our Patreon page. Cheers!